No introduction, let's get into it. The first trope that we have to kill, the first trope that we have to destroy, choke slam, is that the young adult category is not fit for complex themes and complex stories, and it has to be dumbed down. I abhor this a lot because I really think, I genuinely, from the bottom of my heart, think that young adult is not necessarily synonymous, or like it's not equal to stupid teenagers. I love, for instance, The Fault of... What was that? I don't know. I have no idea. I love The Fault in Our Stars, one of my favorite books of all time. And it's a young adult book. Don't get it twisted. It's a young adult book with a lot of thematic depth. And also at the same time, it has a lot of character depth. And I think a lot of young adult books these days with authors, they think that if you have complex stories, it's not going to sell. No, actually, it can sell. It has been done, like The Fault in Our Stars. There's a lot of young adult books out there that have a lot of rich depth to them. In fact, this is talking about thematic depth. And I think more mainstream young adult books can pick this up, and they can have this, and they can focus more on content rather than just the plot. Right? You can't focus on the content of the characters and the topics that are being discussed. And this can be very interesting. I really abhor the understanding that young adult is for stupid teenagers and it goes no further than that. It does go further than that, and it can go further than that. Moreover, it has been shown that it can go further than that with a lot of books out there that are not only just well sold, but on top of that, they are also very thematically rich. And then the next one is actually anti-aging cream. It's like 40-year-old teenagers. 40-year-old teenagers. This happens a lot. We have characters that feel like they are 30, 20, not 20, 20 is fine, but I'm talking about like 27, 28, and they are not really making logical lapses that a teenager would be making. They are also not making mistakes a teenager would be making. Because you see, if the characters don't make these mistakes, but the people who are reading the books or the intended audience is making these mistakes, it falls into just not being useful for the reader. Because to a lot of teenagers, young adult is like a secondary parent. To a lot of you were raised by technically young adult books. And to you at that age, when you were a teenager, books might have been your third parent, okay? I hope they were your third parent. That was around. And so that means books can teach teenagers, but if you have 30-year-old characters and then you masquerade them as like 17-year-old, what you're doing is counterproductive. Your characters need to make mistakes teenagers would make so that, the audience can see these things. On top of that, your characters need to be struggling with emotions that, the intended audience would be, because that way they can learn from it. It can be their third parent, in other words. Another thing I don't like in young adult books is actually the romance, especially the young adult romance books, where you have the characters fall in love when they see each other, love at first sight. I really don't like this. I don't know why, but technically speaking, if the point of the story is romantic tension, they fall in love immediately. Is like, okay, so there's going to be a monster. There's going to be a monster, and it is the horror genre, and the author is writing about this monster. But then the first prologue, we see the monster. They are described in exquisite detail, and we are never scared of this monster. So don't show the monster in horror is like a principle, and you can use it to add more tension, but at the same time to prolong tension. With romance, if the point is for these characters to eventually get together, then maybe don't have them fall in love at first sight. I don't know. It's just bad craft for me. But also that on a craft level, it's bad. But on top of that, you have this sending bad messages to teenagers that if they are going to fall in love with someone, they're going to fall in love with that person for their looks. It just leads to these children experiencing traumatic relationships where there's really not much depth, and it's one-sided relationship most of the time. If you fall in love with someone because you like the way they look, and not you like the way they behave, these relationships most of the time are one-sided, and one side might end up abusing the other. And so you are sending your audience and your readers, if they're young and impressionable, down a path that is not good for them. So don't do it because first of all it sends bad messages, but second of all, don't do it because it's bad craft. You're writing romance, you know, half tension, God. And then let's talk about one of the most tired tropes in the young adult subcategory. It is take down an empire thing, right? There is a dystopian world and it has some government, and the story follows these young children that are going to dispose of this one. And also it can be a conventional empire, and let's take down that empire because it enslaves us, right? There are few cases where this is done well, like Ember in the Ashes, but 90% of the time, this is not done well because there is no depth to the politics. It's just an empire that is a faceless empire that has nothing to add to the story. Number two, they are technically killing and they're doing a lot of terrible things, and there doesn't seem to be any depth with their motivations or reasons, like even like economical reasons. It would make perfect sense because we have done this before in history. A lot of the times when people have gone to other countries and have gone into those countries with aggression in mind, it was for economic purposes. So this is at least understandable, but a lot of the time in young adult, when this empire seems to be the thing, right? Let's take down the empire. There is no depth added to the empire, and the characters, again, it has to do with that dumb down everything, problem. But yes, bring down the empire is bad for two reasons. First of all, when it's written badly. In other words, the politics have no depth and it's just stock politics. There's nothing to it. And number two, it is bad primarily because it is boring. It has been done countless times. Can it be done well and can it be interesting? Yes, because again, every cliche in the world can be interesting if done well. It's just that it is so common, and we have seen so many books with this particular setup that I doubt from the bottom of my heart there is much left to this particular trope. Unless you're some prodigy, good luck. But yes, I don't like seeing this in my books. It's that boring. I hope that you enjoyed this video. Have a nice day. By the way, yeah, that's how we will finish. Have a nice day. Bye.